last Tuesday at 2:34 p.m. For most of us, it would be a struggle to remember something like this. Over 20 years ago, Chris had to ask himself a question very similar to this one. It concerned an insignificant event that had become very serious several weeks later. Did he succeed in remembering what happened? If so, how does he think he did it? Lots to find out with his speech, The Drive. Help me welcome, please, Chris Nichols.
Thank you. In the early 1990s, I worked at a local grocery store as a cashier. I just finished a long 8-hour shift, and the office manager came out of the office and handed me a check. I looked at the check, and it was an amount over $300, but the check wasn't for me. Someone, several weeks earlier, had purchased over $300 worth of groceries using this check. On that check were my initials and some writing concerning that customer. I looked at the check. It wasn't something that was very familiar to me. I had checked out hundreds of customers between that very point and the time that check was written many weeks ago. That check was something of an issue for me. That store manager told me that that check had come back from the bank. At this point, panic started to set in. Because at that grocery store, you're required to get manager approval on checks over $200. Stared at that check once again. I did not see that approval. Needless to say, I was devastated. And the reason I was devastated is because, one, I was 16 years old, making $4.25 an hour, and the office manager told me that I was likely to get fired or written up for this check. The day was over with. I got in the car and I cried. It was a horrible experience because I'm typically a responsible person. How could I have let something like this happen? Why didn't I get manager approval on this check? As I wiped those tears away, I started the car and started weaving through the neighborhood to get home. We lived about 10 miles from that grocery store. I went through everything that had happened for the past 3 weeks like a Rolodex in my mind. I went through the days, the hours, and the minutes from that current moment back to when that check was written. Nothing was coming to mind. And why would it? It had been 3 weeks plus since that check was written. My mind eventually gave up, and I just focused on the road. Just as I got to my parents' driveway, the answer hit me. The answer amazingly arrived in my brain. I knew exactly what had happened. 3 weeks ago, a customer arrived at my cashier stand with 3 huge heaping mounds of groceries in 3 carts. I checked that customer out. When it came time to pay, he opened a checkbook, a business account checkbook, with 3 sets of checks and wrote the amount for all of those groceries, handed it to me. At that point, I picked up the intercom and called Wayne, the assistant manager. On the intercom, he arrived. I remember him initialing that check and then going away. Whenever I got into the driveway, I immediately called that office and told them, "You've got to talk to Wayne." He initialed that check. The next day, whenever I came in, Wayne admitted to writing his initials on that check. And his initials were hidden where you couldn't see them. I was right. Now, how in the world could I have remembered something like that after I've checked out hundreds of customers over those past couple of weeks? Many checks. I was in school, history books, mathematics, all of that stuff crammed in my brain. How did I remember that specific moment? I'll give you my thoughts concerning this. It involved that drive home. Because I was so focused on driving, it freed up my subconscious to go back and roll through all of those days and identify that answer. And I'm not the only one that's had this experience. I was watching an interview with Willie Nelson. Anytime he needs to write a song or get inspiration, he hops in his old pickup truck and drives up and down the interstate. And that frees up his mind. He says if he is able to remember that song, by the time he gets back to his house, it's almost guaranteed to be a great song. If you ever have a problem in your life or need some inspiration, get in your car. Take a drive. Because that answer that you're looking for, that inspiration you're looking for, could be just around the corner. Having Toastmasters.
Very good.